You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport. I'm your host, Si, and we are very much looking forward to another jam-packed show of guests, fan opinion, debate, latest news and more. We start off with the first hour, which is Cardiff City focused, and I'm delighted to welcome the first guest of this evening. He is a former Wales international, Everton, where he won the lot, and of course the mighty Cardiff City. It is none other than Mr. Kevin Ratcliffe. Welcome to the show, Kevin. How are you, mate?
Hi, good evening. Yeah, great.
It's funny. We were just talking off air that we did something with Andy Campbell a while ago, and we both couldn't believe how long ago it was. Time flies, mate, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're making up for lost time. Supposedly a year, but maybe 2 years of COVID is actually maybe, I think, you appreciate what you've got and do things what you want to do before, it's too late, really. I think it really has sort of widened everybody's mind in what they want to do and where their mindset is, and it wasn't a great time, but I think it sorted a lot of people out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting, like, you kind of realise what you've got when it gets taken away, don't you? And I think, it was an interesting period, shall we say. But, for someone like me who, does podcasts and things like that, it was actually quite fortunate because I got, a lot of the people, including people like yourself, who maybe wouldn't have been available as freely to do long form interviews and long form conversations. So I had the benefit of people wanting something to do, and we had a great chat about your career, and we'll delve into that a little bit this evening. But I kind of wanted to start off on Cardiff City, obviously, and just get your general thoughts on how the season's gone under Omar Rhys. Sort of, he took over in October, and where you think they are.
Yeah, I mean, the lad that's come, Shellac, is it, that's come in? Yeah, it seems to have really improved them. I must admit, it was something that was missing from Cardiff City, maybe not just now, but maybe from a few years. They've not really had a recognised striker that you would say, yeah, we can bang on him, getting, 15 goals a year, and really being, a focal point of the team. So he's improved the side. I think Aaron Ramsey coming back, obviously he's going to improve your side. But what has surprised me, I watched the Aston Villa game and I couldn't believe how well they gelled was Colwill and Ramsey. Ramsey may be playing a little bit deeper than Colwill having really a free range. Because I think it's been hard for that lad. Nobody really seems to pin him down as what position is he. He's been playing on the left, he's been playing on the right, he's been playing as a number 10, he's been playing as a false number 9. And sometimes when you've got the versatility of that, then it sort of, it sort of weakens your chance of getting into a team at times, I think, because you'll fit in here or you'll fit in there rather than being in that one position that you want to play. I was very surprised against Villa how well the both of them actually did. I was very, very surprised. Never ever seen them as a midfield pairing at all. So it's been a season where you always know it's about survival with Cardiff because they're not going to invest heavily, and if you start off well, then usually the season is okay for you. You'll finish mid-table. But this season's been a bit of a struggle at times. You'll have good runs and then they'll have bad runs, and the bad runs keep you where you are. But Omar, I think they've done okay, I must admit. I think he's come in difficult times. I actually see a structure when they're playing, where they are, how they're going to play. Whereas under other managers, I haven't seen that. The players seem to know what they're doing. I thought a couple of weeks ago, I thought he just lost it a little bit, I must admit, but he's galvanised the team back because, some of the games, I mean, I was at the Leeds game and it was very hard to criticise any of the Cardiff City players because Leeds was so good. They would have beaten anybody on that day. And the only one thing I could say was they were lucky it wasn't 9 or 10. They were that good on that. They were the best side I've ever seen play in the Championship. Were Leeds, and I think, they were lucky they didn't lose a lot heavier than what they did. They were far superior, and that just shows you the benchmark where you've got to get to. But I think they've recovered well. They're making it hard for teams, and now they seem as if they've got a goal scorer in the side as well. So that's good news.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned Yusuf Saleh. I think he's made a huge difference. And actually, if you look around the world of football generally, there's not an abundance of out and out, like what I would call old school strikers. And he does seem like a guy who, his link up play is okay and his movement's pretty good. But actually, what he thrives at is just with his work between, in the 18-yard box, he just comes alive. And even last night, he gets the one goal, hits the crossbar and the post.
Yeah,
and I thought
he's
missed the trick
player,
actually.
He's a contact player. He likes contact.
Yeah, and I thought Cardiff missed the trick actually last night, mate, where they didn't put enough crosses in this, particularly in the second half, because he had showed, that he was going to get on the end of it, and they turned down those sort of crosses to try and be a bit more intricate. And I think you've got to utilise his skill set really.
Well, that's it. I'll go to my club, Everton, and say that's one thing Dave Moyes has done. If you've got a big lad up front, put the ball in the box. And I think under Sean Dyche, they did that for a while, but then they stopped doing it. But under Dave Moyes, they've getting the ball, get it out your feet and deliver the ball in the box. That's where your asset, that's where the fella thrives on it, Beto, that he wants contact as well. He's a contact player as well. He likes to field players. And you've got to know your team. You've got to know your players. And not just the manager, but it's the players that have got to know the players. There's no good playing long balls if you're a slow player.
No. Well, we went through a period. Sorry, Kev. I was just going to say we went through a period where we had Callum Robinson up front, and we were just lumping the ball as if he's a target man, and it's that's not going to do him any good. And you're missing out also then by doing that. You're completely bypassing players like Ruben Colwell and Aaron Ramsey and all these other players that Cardiff have who were decent with the ball at the deck.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's about utilising the players that you've got available to you. It's no good trying to, stick to a system or a way to play if you haven't got them players available to you. And that's, sometimes the pig-headedness of the manager if he tries to do that. I mean, I'm getting to hammer on at Man United now. The sign of a good coach for me is that he adapts to the players that he's got and doesn't be, pig-headed about, I'm going to do it this way and this is the way that it goes. I've been brought in to play this way. But if you haven't got the players to do it, you can't possibly do it. And I think he's highlighting certain things in the team, to the owners that, them players are not good enough to play the system that I want to play. But they will be decent players in a certain system, but he won't change. And I think you've got to. That's the class of a manager, knowing the players that you've got available to you. It's no good because, most of them players, by the way he's talking, aren't going to be there next year. So forget about next year. You've got, it's now, and it's the fans, and you don't want fans against you as a manager. It's you want that little bit of leeway with yourself and the fans. And I think Omar coming in and the way that he's gone about things has been really good. It's quite refreshing, really, to see a young coach coming in and, sticking with it. It's been difficult for him. I wouldn't say it's been easy for him, and it's difficult. And we all know that, the chairman's not an easy man to work for.
Yeah, look. I mean, off the field, it's very difficult for any manager who comes in, particularly a young manager who's never, had a.
It most probably suits the owner that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, having a young manager who's never had that sort of big job because he's happy for the opportunity. But I do think Omar Rhys, I think the first thing he did was he got the players on side, which I think is also, a big part of the battle, isn't it? Is getting the players believing in what you're doing, and then I think. As time's gone by, you can see what he's trying to do. I've been quite impressed with how he's been quite adaptable with this, different systems. Sometimes they go 3 at the back because I think you need that in modern football.
Well, there you go. That's what I've just been talking about. And, some managers are too pig-headed to actually change.
Yes.
A good sign of a coach, there's plenty of good coaches down the leagues. And I think it's been proven this year that, the basics of football, Man City have found it very, very hard not to stop conceding goals. They can score goals, but the manager has always had good players and he's a forward-thinking manager. He's not a defensive manager. What do you do when you haven't got the ball? And to go back to basics is that you don't make sure that it's tight at the back and don't concede goals, especially if you're not scoring goals at the other end. And that's what they weren't doing. But like I say, these managers that manage the top clubs, it might be the same on the reverse angle as well, is that can they manage lower down, down the leagues? Fortunately for them, they won't have to do it.
No, of course, no. No, that's it.
They won't have to do it. But I actually think it's a lot easier to manage a club like Man City, Man United, Everton, Liverpool, Tottenham, than it is lower league clubs. The lower league clubs managers have more problems.
Do you think it's more about the manager's ability lower down as well when they haven't got the money to spend and they can't just go, I need a right back, I need a centre forward and go and buy it? They've got to kind of coach, haven't they? And they've got to improve the players they've got. Maybe use some academy players.
They've got, but they actually go and work on a system that suits the players that they're going to be bringing in as well. That's what it's all about, coaching. Not to just play a certain way, but to adapt to certain things and different systems. And you see that happening more, I think, lower down than you do higher up. They seem to have the one system. I do believe that a lot of managers, in all leagues, have only got Plan A. They haven't got Plan B, and the better managers have Plan B and also Plan C. So it's been a criticism of right the way through the leagues, not just at the top, not at the bottom, but every league. They've got one way of playing, and that's it. I don't see anything different. That's the only disappointing thing about me in football now is everybody's trying to play the same way.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's become very one-dimensional, isn't it?
Yeah, I know the pitches are a lot better than it affords you, but I don't see, I don't see anything different, and it's quite disappointing in one way that they don't change things quick enough and do. I mean, it's easy for me to sit stands and say that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but you go down all the leagues and every team plays possession-based football. And, don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for that. But I do miss
you haven't got the players to do it.
No, that's it. And
you look at some of the, I watched Newport Saturday and Newport are trying to play the same way. Ping, 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 knock it about, tippy-tappy football. But they ain't got a striker. A recognised striker, something that's similar that Cardiff had a few months back or a month back. And you've got to find something different because it's going to break down. Sooner or later, it'll break down and you're defending and then you're conceding. And I don't see, how you can keep... they got a great result last night, Newport. But, to play tippy-tappy football when you've most probably got the weakest budget in the league and other clubs have got a better budget, so they've got better players, who can actually play that type of football a lot better than you. So you've got to be I think you've got to be very, very careful and find a way that actually suits them players that you've got available to you.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned David Moyes, who's gone back to Everton, and I think it's interesting because I think one of the things which he's done, it sounds very basic, but he's put round pegs in round holes instead of. Yeah. You see so often, like a midfielder playing at right back or whatever it may be, and it's almost like you just feel like for the balance and the good of the team, utilize what you have and play them in their position.
Well, that can be said. That a lot of managers sometimes do that. They go for square pegs in round holes type of thing. I'll give you an example. England
did it for years, haven't they?
England have done it for years. They don't necessarily pick the player in form in their position. They'll play a player who is supposedly a world-class player and play him in his position outside his position. So if he's a centre midfield player, they'll play him on the left wing because he's a great player, not because he's the best player in that position. And I've been critical of England for many, many years. And I think that's the pressure that they put on the managers, the media, especially the London media, put on the England manager. Whereas we're blessed that we haven't got that many players as an international side. So sometimes we do have to put square pegs in round holes because we haven't got an abundance to play for. So I think sometimes that's better for you because you've got to do it. I don't think you have to do it when you've got top world-class players, that play week in, week out. And if they're not getting games that they're playing on the top of the game, I'll pick a left winger and he's playing week in, week out and he's, producing. But then a better player, say midfield player is playing out of, world-class player. He'll get into the side in your position because you need class, but not as classy as you as the left winger.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because we also at Cardiff, we've had Rina Mota playing at right back all season. Who's by trade he's. I
don't think he's been playing there all season. I think I've seen him his first game there. Was it against Sheffield Wednesday away?
I'd have to go back and check.
He did really well, and for somebody that's played out of position. Maybe he's found a position for him to play in because, people who were playing in that position weren't playing quite well. So needed something doing that. That's all down to the manager.
Yeah, 100%. I think, and again, it's a brave decision. And, Perry NG is quite a big name in the championship, but his form wasn't great. He picked up a knock. Rina Mota did well at right back. And actually, I think, if we're honest with ourselves, Rina Mota probably doesn't get in as a central midfielder ahead of, you've got Ramsey and Colwell, and then you've also got Chambers has gone in there. Manswerk has come in January.
That's what I've been really surprised with Chambers, how well he's done going in.
Been excellent, wouldn't he?
But it's nice to know that you've got that player. And I think maybe, playing Rina Mota at right back has most probably put Perry NG under a little bit of pressure.
Yes.
So he's had to up his game. You can look at it in all different ways, but at the end of the day, you got to give a little bit of a tap on the back to the manager for recognising that maybe he could play as a right back there. And you've got more chance of playing right back than you have at centre midfield at the moment.
Of course, yeah. And I think with Omar Rhys, I think it's his first job. He's got a very limited coaching staff in terms of numbers and experience. He came in, Cardiff had 1 point, 1 goal, and it was looking painful. And he came in, he got the players on side, and then gradually you could see, with a bit better football. And then now I think, we came away from Burnley last night, and I think most Cardiff fans, I did a post-match show, and, the general feeling was disappointment that we hadn't at least got a draw from that. Yeah, well, they lost 5-0 earlier in the season to Burnley. So
it's been a long time coming, that type of attitude, hasn't it?
Yes.
No, I think he's done brilliant. I think if I could give him one bit of advice is get some of the experience around you within the club. Get somebody outside to come in, that knows football, has been around for a long time, and because he'll come up again with things that he's never dealt with as the manager, but that manager might have, so he can advise you how to deal with it. And I think that would be a good signing for him. Somebody off the pitch just to speak to, to have a sort of shoulder to lean on, and sometimes to cry on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that experienced head, isn't it? Like you look at the coaching staff; I think they're all doing a very good job. But also with Cardiff, you haven't got a director of football or a technical director or any of these positions.
Needs to be a director of football.
No. But what I mean is, there's you've got the coaches and the manager, and then it's just the board who aren't football people. So there's no one for him to bounce ideas off outside of the immediate sort of coaching circle, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. And you need that. You need
Do you
that
think,
because, they could all be sort of like the guys that he's got around him could be all be looking the same way. So we need somebody that's going to be a little bit different. And, like substitutions and things like that. It's okay making substitutions at a lower level and at under 21, 23 level and youth team. But, when you're in the nitty gritty of a thing with, 15 to 20,000 fans in the ground, wanting a change, you can't be swayed by them. You've got to make your own decisions, and it's when to make them. I know it's all down to what you've got on the bench as well. And if you've got nothing on the bench, then, sometimes as a manager, you have to show people you've got nothing on the bench to change it.
Yeah. You've got to send a bit of a message.
A message up to the boardroom as well.
Yes, yeah, of course. I think actually it's interesting because I look at Cardiff on paper and I look through that squad and I think, God, they should never be in the bottom, 5 or 6. They should be higher up. You look at the players they've got and they've genuinely got some very good footballers. And you just wonder how they're in that position. Now, obviously, I don't put that on Omar Rhys necessarily because I think by the time he came in, they were already, in big trouble and he's had to steady the ship. Do you think, firstly, that Cardiff will stay up? And then secondly, would you give him, a full-time contract to let him build on the foundations he's put in so far?
Well, building on the foundations that you've already put in is depending, what's available to you as a manager. Is it bargain basement again? Because you've got to improve on what you've got as a manager. I've always said it. I've said it on the radio many a time. It's no good bringing in like for like because you're not going to improve. You've got to try and find out something a little bit better. I think the problem is that, Cardiff, they've given managers jobs, they've given them contracts. I think it's the last 3 managers, and they've all failed once they've got the contracts. Yeah. So that'll be a little bit of a wariness, from the board and things. So, it's a difficult one. As a manager, you want the security. But I think he's actually dealt with the pressure quite well in what he's got. So, somebody like Omar will, I don't know, would he take a 1-year contract, with big bonuses and things like that? I don't know. You always want that security, not just for yourself, but for your family and everything. But it's a different world now, football. I'm not too sure, what Cardiff's thinking of, what they want. And the problem is, who else are they going to get? What type of manager they're going to get? And then, because the managers will know how hard the chairman is to work with that are out there that want the job. Some of them will be desperate, so they will take a job. But, if Omar keeps the squad up, you're saying, that the players that they've got, are they good enough?
I think there's a big chunk of them which are.
I think there is radical changes to be made there to turn it around. Joe Rawls, I think, has been exceptional. He's been a leader on and off the field. And I just think when he plays and he's about the place, there's an identity there. You know, he's Cardiff through and through, and I think that's what you need at a football club. It doesn't matter which football club it is. You need a Joe. Everybody needs a Joe Rolls, but unfortunately, he's getting to the wrong age. His fitness, you know, is good, but he keeps picking up the odd injury or two, and it's, you know, what you can pick up on the loans. But the thing is, you've got to get off to a good start. If you get off to a good start, then once you're at the bottom and round that bottom area, and you're there at Christmas as well, you're still round about there at the end of the season. So there's still a long way to go, but I think they've got enough in them to actually, stay up this year. Yeah, definitely. I thought I was a little bit of a worry early on in the season. I must admit there was a period when I'm thinking Cardiff could go. You know, now that would be disastrous, not just for the football club, but for the chairman as well.
Oh, absolutely.
He's got to wake up and smell the coffee.
One day.
It's a fantastic club, but why does Cardiff City always seem to attract these chairmen and owners?
It's been like it for years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been like it. You can go right the way through the decades, never mind years.
Yeah, it's a strange. Like the Championship as a whole, I mind, is a crazy league. It's my favourite league as well to watch. Like you look at Coventry was 17th not long ago. They're now 5th, but just picking up going on a good run of wins.
But quite easy, Si. Quite easy. A side that could be in the top 6 one year could be relegation fodder the next. God, that's how difficult the league is. I don't think it's actually quite as good as it has been in years gone by. You know, Leeds for me are exceptional, but it's just, I look at the Cardiff City teams that Dave Jones had.
Yes,
and he had 2 or 3 sides there that really would get promoted now.
Yeah, they should have got promoted, shouldn't they? They went. Wow. At one point when they were unlucky
one year, but Bothroyd got injured in the playoff final against Blackpool, and that was it. That was the turning point for me, and the chance gone. But the players that they've had, if anything, this is the weakest squad that I've seen at Cardiff, for a long, long time. So you're talking about relegation. But they are. I actually think that they're quite weak in areas, and from teams that they've got in the past. And by the way, them teams who are a lot better in the past still didn't get promoted.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
I think,
and the players, some of the players that they produce, Gabs, Ernie, you can just Bothroyd that they had Chopra. The midfield players, the Bellamy, the lad they had from Leeds, midfield player, Kavanagh from Stoke.
Stephen McPhail, Peter Whittingham.
Pete Whittingham. I mean, fantastic players, but I don't see that class there at the moment. So
I think the one thing they do have now is they have a group of young players in the first team squad, like Salic is 21, Ruben's 22. They've got Alex Robertson came in the summer for a couple of million, who's 21. I think David Turnbull's mid-20s. And they're all players who you look at and think, when they're fit and they're ready, they can.
Well, there's the other players as well that he's given a chance to that are coming through that you're thinking, well, hey, that's... but the manager needs to be brave to play these players. God, and maybe, in the past, the managers maybe have not. They're more worried about themselves rather than the players.
Well, there's a famous story
that's not just at Cardiff. That's everywhere.
No, of course.
Because the manager
they're fighting for their job, aren't they? The managers almost game to game in most jobs.
Well, they're worried about the first team players and not the kids.
Yeah,
I think at Cardiff, it's always important that you've got a manager that's interested in kids, and give them a chance, because it's been, they've had some good kids come through.
Yeah, and they've got a big group coming through now who look like a good chunk of them could be first team players. Yeah. So it's important that they get those opportunities, because if they don't get the opportunities, they'll go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And get them elsewhere. And I think that's obviously a big issue. I wanted to ask you very quickly, Kev, a little bit about your time at Cardiff. Tell me how it came about for you to sign for Cardiff City.
Yeah, I was freed by Everton, but I was on a short-term contract, month by month, just really to help the youngsters out. I think more than anything, I was on a crappy wage at Everton, shall we say, at the end of my time, and I was struggling to get a club, I must admit. And then out of the blue, I got a phone call around Christmas time from Carlisle, and they offered me a contract to go up there. The manager was, I don't know, the chairman. I don't know if you remember him. He was like a big Man United fan and a bit sort of weird. And there was something about him I didn't like. Okay. So if you don't like somebody, then you don't trust somebody. Yeah, and I wasn't quite sure. And then I've got a call off Cardiff to go down there, off Eddie May, and that was just after Christmas to go down. And I'm sure he put a training session on for me, just to see if I was fit enough. And funny enough, the game on the Saturday was against Carlisle at Carlisle. So I'd come down, trained in the week, did every session. I was a little bit concerned on one session because it was on AstroTurf, and my legs weren't ready, they weren't made for AstroTurf. Yeah. But I got through and we played. I scored in my debut against Carlisle, and I enjoyed every minute there, except for the end again, the following season, where it just, I think there was a little bit of respect was lost between me and Eddie over certain issues, which I won't go into, because we had a great season. We got promoted. We got into the Cup Winners' Cup. Had 2 great games against Standard Liège, and put the frighteners on them a little bit. But it wasn't to be. And it was a great bunch of lads who was sort of like so happy to be, when you've gone from one environment, which was great, to another environment. I've got great fond memories of being at Cardiff, and it's just the way the fans took me in as well. They were appreciative just as much as I was appreciative. And when you get off to a start of when you've only scored 2 goals in your whole career at Everton over 490 appearances, and on your first game, you scored a goal where you've only scored 2 for Everton in your whole career. So yeah, I got off to a great start. Loved it. Unfortunately, I thought, under Rick Wright, another wrong one, Rick Wrong, as I used to call him. I actually thought if he would have invested in them days 250 grand to the manager to go out and buy players, they could have easily got promoted again. With the players that we had, Phil Stant, a striker, Carl Dale, Windy Miller. It was just Jason Perry, Wardy at the back, Blakey. But Blakey moved on, Wardy moved on. Robbie James as well. Good. We had good pros there, and good kids, really good kids. It was great fun. I must admit, I enjoyed my football there.
It sounds like everything was in place, ready to push on again. But the thing is,
it was already there. When you've got that squad. Gary Thompson come in the following year because Phil Stant fell out. Everybody fell out with Cardiff, and it wasn't the manager. Although the manager was, Eddie was, was the chairman's puppet, really, in a way. I don't think he was brave enough to, even though he was a big fella, I don't think he was brave enough to stand up to the chairman. And Stanty was a goal scorer, and that was it, goal scorer. He wasn't a Gary Thompson, but I thought he could have played really, really well together, them two up front the following season. You wouldn't have to change too much more, but an investment to bring in better players. Colin Griffiths, what a player he was, from the lower leagues. He could play in like 3 or 4 different positions. Nick Richardson. It was just a great team. Derek Brazil. Everything was in place, I thought, to actually go on and get them into the next division. So you're going from the old, I think it was 3rd then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The old 3rd division into the 2nd and 2nd into the 1st. It could have easily have been done.
Yeah, and I think that kind of rounds us off all really nicely in terms of clubs can have things in place on the field. Like with Cardiff now, you have a lot of young players coming through, but you need that investment in the transfer market to get the right players around them. You might have the right manager and everything, but you need the board and the football club to make the right decisions off the field to back you and be able to take you on. It remains to be seen whether Cardiff will do that. Kevin, I really, really enjoyed speaking to you, and I really wish I had more time to speak to you, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon, and we'll have a proper chat. But thank you ever so much for joining me, mate. I appreciate your time.
No problem. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, mate.
All right.
Take care, mate. Kevin Ratcliffe, ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure. And as I say, I could have quite happily sat here for another hour speaking to Kev about football. Up next, we have the Cardiff City Fan View with Tony Rivers.
You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Welcome back. I'm Si. This is Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio. And that was Kevin Ratcliffe that we just spoke to. Absolute legend of the game. Won it all. And I'm delighted that next up for the fan opinion, fresh off the loss to Burnley last night, we're joined by author and Cardiff City fan, Mr. Tony Rivers. How are you, Tony? You okay, mate?
Good evening, Simon. Thank you for inviting me.
Not a problem, mate. Not a problem at all. First of all, tell me what you thought of the performance overall last night.
Well, I said earlier, I think the second half was some of the best football I've seen all season, anywhere really in the Championship. We were on it. We were so positive in the second half. I think the subs were made at the right time. The knives are out for Omar from the usual suspects today and in the certain sections because it's easy in hindsight to say, but I probably do agree that Fish deserved a start. But Rinomot has had a good season, but it was mentioned today that he struggled a bit last night. But he was up against one of the best wide men in the league. Burnley haven't got a weakness in their side, and they might have let their foot off the gas a little bit at 2-0, but we were unlucky not to come away with a point. Simon, you've seen that yourself.
Yeah, I thought Cardiff were really good value for at least a point, and actually, I think if we could have got that goal, with about 20 minutes, 15 minutes to go, I think we could have gone on and won it, because I thought the Burnley just looked like they were starting to get a bit twitchy. They were wasting time. They brought on an extra, they went 3 at the back. So they weren't really pushing for that third goal. But unfortunately, Tone, any team, but particularly Cardiff, you just can't give teams a 2-goal lead. And those defensive mistakes sort of reared their heads again, didn't they?
Yeah, I've seen improvement from us over the last few weeks, and at Villa first half last night, Hull Hull wasn't the best game you'll ever see, but we kept a clean sheet and we got the job done. But we still got a soft underbelly. But last night, I suppose we were up against Burnley, really, who, you know, probably will be back in the top flight next year. But it was, yeah, I know everybody's really frustrated at the amount of early goals we can see. A lot of Burnley fans, it was all over by after 20 minutes or whatever it was. In the second half, but we just penned them back, didn't we? I don't know if anybody else has done that to them much, you know, this year. That was the first goal they conceded, one in the league in 2025. They can't really class their performance at Preston in the cup because they changed 10 from the first team, didn't they? So yeah, they came back a little bit fresher last night, but the promise is there from us, definitely. Burnley's manager today said that we're in a false position, and you know, I do agree with him. Not all Cardiff fans would, because as I said, I've seen some comments today about Rhys, and as we know, I think. Sorry, Simon. I think if we lose Saturday, as ridiculous as it sounds, you know, he could be in trouble again. You know.
Yeah, it's frustrating because I look at it and I can see what Omar Rhys is trying to do. I can see the patterns of play now compared to the start of the season where we looked uncoached and lost. But now you can see we've got a structure and you can see what we're trying to do. We sort of go up into the midfield, then we go back and we look for a diagonal out to the wingers, and the wingers are nice and wide and high. So you can see what he's trying to do. And I think people forget, and maybe this is a testament to the job that Omar Rhys has done, is for us to come away from Burnley, who, you know, have got the money, the squad, the parachute payments, they're up the top of the league, they're flying, you know, haven't conceded a goal for ages, and we're coming away as Cardiff fans disappointed we haven't taken anything from that game. And I think that's a testament to what the job he's done. Sometimes people just need to take a step back,
big time. But there's certain elements I know there's certain elements in the press, there's certain elements of Cardiff fans that whatever Rhys does, he's not going to be appreciated. So yeah, I just hope he starts to prove some people wrong. But we need to run the games now, which I think it will come. I don't know, it'll be obviously a bit difficult Saturday, but if we play the right blend, people are calling out for, the second half. The side that played the second half last night to start on Saturday, but
that doesn't necessarily work, though, does it?
No.
Away to Sunderland, is different to chasing a goal, isn't it?
Like Rinomort, I think possibly rest him for this one. Petty NG's looking a different player at the moment, I think. El Ghazi, maybe Isaac would have been preferable last night. It's not quite working for El Ghazi at the moment. So hopefully maybe Will Alves will be back on Saturday. We'll see. But yeah, I think after the game last night, I saw the sponsors man of the match, which went to Callum O'Dowda, and then Jeff Eckard, who's working within the club. He was speaking to he was speaking on the mic, and he said we'll win more than what we lose. And I agree with him. I think we've got a nice run of games now after Sunderland where there's some decent points to be won there. The other teams as well around us, we've still got that buffer, and we have over Luton, 6 points really when you take into account the goal difference. But we still got to get the job done, haven't we? They come to us next week. They've got to go to Burnley Saturday. But we've spoken about this before. There's a host of 6-pointers. And we did a few of them. But fortunately for us, most of our 6-pointers against teams down below are at home. And aside from last night, we've done well at home this year in 2025. People cite that it's only 4 wins from 20 games or something, but my barometer at the moment is what we've done post Boxing Day. I don't want to know what we've done last year, but post Boxing Day, things are improved.
Well, I think post Boxing Day is just the Leeds game, really, where it was really bad. But equally, as Kev Ratcliffe just said, Leeds were also very good. As bad, as much as we weren't great that day, Leeds were also excellent. So you have to give a bit of credit where it's due. And I think, even last night, Burnley, I thought they looked a little bit twitchy when they were passing out from the back. So I would have liked to have seen us be a little bit more constant with the pressing, because when we did press, we forced them into mistakes. I think I agree with you. Like Will Fish should have started Perry right back, because I think with Rina Motor, I just think he looks a bit tired. He's played a lot of football after not playing very much the previous year, so he's bound to have been mentally tired as much as physically. And I think it's important we keep pace either side of Salic on Saturday, so that we can try and hit Sunderland on the break, because I do think it's a tough game, but I also think it's a game we can get something from if we set up right and certain players, do
I think so. They faltered a little bit at home. I don't know if they're confident enough now to think they're going to get automatic. So that mindset will come into it. The further the further the distance they see that second spot was. Then it's time to just prepare for the playoffs, really. But they've dropped points at home to a lot lesser sides. So let's give it a go Saturday. The only fear, Cardiff, is the defensive frailties. And, if we go 1-0 down within the first 10-20 minutes, then it's a case of here we go again. But
on the flip side of that, though, Tone, if we can keep a clean sheet, do you feel like if we can keep a clean sheet, we almost feel like we can go on and win the game? Because I look at the attacking players that we have now, and we have this focal point in Salic, whereby if you put the ball in the box, he gets on the end of it and he hits the target. So you almost feel like, right, let's get defense solid and sorted, which it did look up until the first half yesterday. If you can sort that out and you can keep clean sheets, I do feel like we've got players who can get us a goal here and a goal there. And then you never know what can happen.
In the case of Saleh, we've, hopefully we've got a real bargain on our hands there. He looks like he's got all the attributes only to become a top centre forward. He just looks so natural in the box. Last night, beautiful header. It was a classic number 9 header. And also, when he hit the post, he hit the bar. He was a constant thorn in Burnley's side. And which we haven't had before, Robbo. But I think we needed, I hope they can form a partnership together. But I think Saleh, he's hit the ground running, and long may it continue.
In terms of Saturday, looking ahead to the Sunderland game, mate, what would you like to see in terms of a kind of a back four and a starting lineup? Where would you go with it?
Yeah, I think.
Or would you go for a back four? Would you go with 3 or?
He'd probably go with a back three when he again and wing backs.
So.
But yeah, I bring Fish back into it. Maybe Bagan, Perry NG, right wing, right back, right wing back. But then it's difficult then with the midfield, you know, because Alex Robson's back. But I thought that was quite brave to be. I don't know. Did he have a knock or something last night to go off so soon? Or was it tactical?
I think he's just not fit, mate. I think he's really since he came back against Hull, he just looks like he's not up to speed yet. Which is why I was quite surprised he started. I thought it was a brave decision, but it's one of them where you look at it and you think, look, with hindsight, it's easy, isn't it? But I think Fish and Colwell were probably unlucky to not retain their starting places from the Friday game against Villa. But that's what happens when you've got a good squad of players. Like,
I think the midfield three of Chambers, Holding, Mansverk, and Colwell on Saturday, and I think then we can maybe Will Alves if he's 100% fit, or Isaac, Kean on the other side, or Robinson, and obviously Salek as the target man. I hope, I think we can, as long as, keep them quiet for 20 minutes, half hour. And we've done in the past in Sunderland, we just grown to the game end because they get really frustrated up there. And they went, and they haven't had the best results. So we haven't got a bad little record up at the Stadium of Light. So, let's go for it. If we do lose, obviously it's it's not good, but
doom and gloom.
Yeah, it will be. But actually, when I did like a predictor before Plymouth, and I didn't have us to pick any points up at Burnley, Sunderland. I was trying to be a little bit conservative, but I did have us to pick up a point at Plymouth and beat Hull. So at the moment, it's my predictor table is going on course, and we do eventually. I don't want to say it, but we do eventually survive quite comfortably. But yeah, obviously, then we got a massive journey to do us a nice little favour Saturday, which I'm sure I'm sure they probably oblige. But like Friday night, Oxford have got to go to Norwich, and Oxford are in free fall. They've had they had the purple patch with Rowett. It was like the new manager effect one here within that first month. We've seen it, haven't we? We've seen it with Mick McCarthy and Neil Harris, and where we went on these and everybody we were raving or give them contracts, but that's football. But I can see Oxford getting dragged right back into it. I think
they just need to find a point from somewhere, don't they? At the moment, just something.
Yeah, I think
they are just struggling.
I think we're closing the gap. I can see Luton closing the gap. So I don't know about Plymouth and Derby. To be honest with you, I think Derby are gone. I don't know if Plymouth have got enough about them to get a decent run home on the way going. But I think Luton can get out of it. And then you're looking at us, Stoke, Oxford, Pompey not out of it. Swansea will get out of it. No matter what. Some people will say Swansea will get out of it, unfortunately. But it's still tight, and these things. It's always nervy in it, but we just keep doing what we're doing, and I think the rich vein of form Salek is in will be enough for us to steer clear eventually.
Yeah, I think just very quickly going back to that Burnley game, one of the frustrating things for me was that if you take out the mistakes, and it was the way we'd really, really strangely defended crosses yesterday in the first half. We just allowed them to, pretty much have a free cross, put it in the box, and then we just did so much ball watching. You know, there was like 3 or 4 defenders in the box against one Burnley player. The Burnley player seemed to be alive to the second ball and to moving, and all of our players were just stood still. And I don't know whether that's because I can't really put my finger on it, because obviously Will Fish hasn't played all season, so you couldn't say, oh, it's because he's missing. But he does go and attack the ball, and he's quite vocal for a young player. I don't know whether it was a balance thing where, you know, obviously Perry was in the middle, so he's slightly out of position, but it was disappointing to see us defend so naively in that first half after being so good against Hull defensively. And against Villa as well, we were pretty good defensively as well. So I think that was a bit of a kick in the teeth in terms of because you look at that and you take those mistakes out, and actually the first half with the ball, we were all right. And then the second half, like you said, we did well. So it's
after Hull, I did say if we set up like that against Burnley, they'll murder us, and which they did in the first half, because obviously two different qualities from between Hull and Burnley, and so yeah, I don't know. In hindsight, is easy, you know. People saying, you know, the first half we should have done this, we should have done that, but it was you know, it's frustrating that we were 2 down so soon. Like you said, you know, we against Hull, it was Fish. To me, well, he had the sponsors man of the match. Him and NG were fantastic, obviously, but yeah, it was a shame last night. But like you said, everybody in the ground, compared to online, everybody in the ground were really upbeat about getting doing so well in that second half, and yeah, people around us were saying, you know, there's, you know, the results are coming.
Yeah, I think it'll click, mate. I do. I think I said this last week. At some point, it's going to click, and we're going to give someone a bit of a hiding. I wouldn't be shocked to see us go and do it to someone, you know, like a Luton or someone, because they've been in a bit of a struggle form wise. But he's just trying to find the right combinations and the right personnel, balance injuries and fitness. And people forget as well. Like, you look at that Burnley team. It's not just what they do on the ball, how quickly they get into like a defensive shape and how compact they are. I was so impressed by that side of it, because as soon as Cardiff would win a ball or a tackle, they were back, like all of their players were back in, and you had to play through a group again. And not many teams have that discipline at the top to be able to defend like that in games that they expect to win as well. So I think that was another part of it.
They were good, especially in the first half, and they had 2 or 3 breaks, and it was we were talking about it, and it was reminiscent to when we played Man City in the FA Cup. That's how impressive some of their moves looked, you know. And but it's crazy to think, you know, the 3 teams that went up last year, and I think the 3 teams that went up the year before, they looking like, you know, they're just not quite good enough for the top flight. You know, this is obviously another subject, but when Leeds go up this year, will they strengthen the right departments to make a good shout to Villa next year in the Premier League? Because that mold is going to break soon, and, you know, one of these championship clubs that are going to it hasn't happened for a while, but they're going to become established soon. Probably the last couple of teams, you know, Brentford, Bournemouth, and Brighton, the 3 Bs. And you know, they've had a brilliant structure in place. I'm really jealous of them, because you know, we were on a par with them. We were in higher leagues than them for years, and now look at them, look how strong they are now. There's a different mindset to the club now, like we were discussing about the new recruitment manager. it's already paying dividends really from January. You know what they looked for in a centre forward like Salek. You know, we've had about 20, 30 strikers, haven't we, the last 10 years, and hardly any of them have worked out. But hopefully, this kid now he looks the real deal.
He does, mate, and I think the interesting thing with him is that he's young. You know, Alex Robertson, young. Ruben, young. Ashford, you know, Alves and Mansverk. If we end up, you know, maybe working out a loan deal for them next year, they're both young. So the potential is there. Things are in place. It ultimately will come down to will they stick with Omar Rhys and will they give him that opportunity to build on what he has done so far. I think generally, particularly match-going fans, they can see and they can appreciate the job that he's doing and how he's done it, and the fact that it's evolving and it's coming and things have improved. But you never know with these people off the field at Cardiff City. They have their own opinions and their own views on things, and you can never quite predict what they're going to do, mate, can you?
No, I don't know how much hope for him, but that's been the same all year, haven't it? I think they, you know, I wouldn't say it's common knowledge, but word was, you know, they were trying to get rid of him, but they haven't yet.
It's been like that almost since he took over, isn't it? Like almost from when he took over.
Yeah.
Right, Tone, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Really appreciate your time, mate. And I will catch up with you soon. And hopefully 3 points for the Bluebirds on the weekend. And we'll be back in just a second with the Welsh Football Hour with none other than Mr. Jonny Owen.
The home of Welsh sport. This is Cymru Sports. You're listening to Cardiff City World on Cymru Sport Radio, live from the Welsh capital. The most interactive football show in Wales, featuring guests, fan opinion, and all the latest news surrounding Cardiff City. Have your say and get in touch now.
Welcome back. This is the Welsh Football Hour, live on Cardiff City World and, of course, Cymru Sport Radio. We are talking all things Welsh football for the next hour, from the national team, the Welsh leagues, grassroots. We have a couple of guests to join us as well. And we start with none other than presenter, filmmaker, and, of course, part owner at Merthyr Town, Mr. Jonny Owen. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Simon. How are you, mate? You all right?
Yeah, very good, mate. Very good. Thank you very much for joining me. It's been an interesting season for Merthyr, mate, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a great season for Merthyr. They're top of the league. They have been for quite a while. They support. The run-in has started. They drew with their big rivals, Tottenham, on the weekend. Took a few hundred there as well. So it's been going really well. At one game at a time, I suppose they say. But it couldn't be going any better, Simon, to be honest with you. Yeah,
I think it seems like there's just this momentum. I see a lot of, you know, fans on social media, and you see clips of the amount of fans that are traveling, you know, with the team and stuff. It's difficult not to get swept up in that, I'm imagining, and you know, it's exciting times, I suppose.
It is. I was on a WhatsApp group yesterday, and one of the boys put in their prediction to the end of the season according to a computer, and we were all like, "Don't do that, you know, don't tempt the football gods, don't upset them." But yeah, you know, listen, I mean, it's a brilliantly run football club. It's fan owned. You know, everybody sort of chips in. They've got a really good board, a really progressive board. They've worked hard at the local community. So people in Merthyr feel a real attachment to the club. You know, they really feel that at the moment. And, you know, it's always been a football town, famously, Merthyr. Has been for like 100 years. So all those sort of ducks are lined up, really, and it just seems to work this season. They've got a great young manager,
Paul, who's doing a wonderful job. So all the signs are very good, mate. You know, all the signs are very good. And like I said, I know it sounds like a cliche, but you can't help but saying them this time of the season. But one game at a time, just, you know, see where you are at the end of the season.
Yeah, it is very, very tight up there, isn't it? I was loving a look. You've got like a 6-point gap ahead of Tottenham in second, but they've obviously got 2 games in hand as well. So if they were to win those, it's very, very tight for you. What was the aim at the start of the season in terms of like where Merthyr were hoping to finish in the league? Were they looking at promotion or a bit more sort of lower than that?
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely looking at the playoffs. I mean, it was only 2 years ago that they finished bottom and they didn't go down the league really by default because another team didn't have the facilities to come up onto their level. So I think a lot of people were hoping for, you know, a playoff position, which I think they're pretty much guaranteed already. So in that respect, it's a success. They're a young team. They play football very progressively, Merthyr. Which is ironic, really, when you remember some of the great Merthyr teams of the past always had a few tough guys in there, Valley Boys and all that. Mm-hmm. But they do play very sort of like on-the-floor football. It suits the surface. They've got a 3G surface up there, which they need really for a club at that level because it's used every night of the week and they need that income. So I get it. So they've adapted the game, Simon, to play a very specific way. They play a quick passing game. And sometimes they can get out-muscled. You know, you can get bullied a little bit because they have got these players who play a certain way, and they're always battling against the better wages that are in the League of Wales. But they seem to have got a core of players that plays for the manager, plays a very specific way. I think the players really enjoy having decent crowds, you know, that sing their names and all that. I think that's a big part of it as well. That if you're a young footballer, you do want to play in front of bigger crowds. So all those factors have sort of helped this year, and every year they've got a little bit better, really. And like I said, with the new manager, he's ambitious and he gets them playing a certain way, and it's been really successful, you know.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've watched more Welsh League football and lower league football in the last probably 3 months than I've probably ever watched. Like, you know, it's just from doing this show because I've wanted to be able to, you know, be able to talk to people about what they're taking part in and stuff like that. And it's been really interesting because years ago, you know, the non-league and the Welsh League, it wasn't pretty to watch. And I look at some of the teams now and they play such exciting football. There's some genuinely, you know, real good players down there. Is that a worry in some ways for Merthyr that some, you know, players will get picked off as they become more successful?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think Wrexham in particular, if you speak to their fans, they kind of lived in a Groundhog Day up there, didn't they, until sort of the Hollywood backers came in, where they were a fan-owned club. And if you're a fan-owned club, as you know, you have to operate within certain financial constraints. And if you were a decent player for Wrexham, you know, you were players who will get picked off by, say, Stockport or Tranmere, you know, and I think that's happened with Merthyr. We had a boy picked off this year who went to Yeovil. So as part of it, really, the more successful you get, the more players are going to be tempted away. And the League of Wales is a richer, well, they have richer teams than Merthyr at the moment. They just do because of the financial input that comes in from the FAW. So you're always battling against that. And I think what Merthyr work really hard at doing is that they try to sort of say to players that, you know, you will be playing in front of big crowds, you will have a following or an away support. I mean, Merthyr, you know, as everybody knows, has always been a big Cardiff City town. So a lot of boys who go to watch Cardiff will come and watch Merthyr when City are away. Maybe a lot of them will support Merthyr now since, you know, they're against and the colour change, so they picked up fans there, and you could have a pint watching games. You know, I think that's a big thing. You know, and you can stand by who you want to. So you know, it's a very different experience for you to go and watch league football. And I think once you've experienced that, as you say, and enjoy it, it is very tempting to go and watch. And I think the figures really of people watching non-league football has never been higher in the UK. It's a massive audience. You know, when I used to do Talk Sport and the column, if I did mention non-league, we would get a massive response. So, you know, it is an attractive day out. You know, you can take the kids. You know, it is cheaper. You can do things like have a pint, as I said. And Merthyr have been really good at marketing all those things, you know, and that's what they've done. They always have these offers, if you see them, for season tickets holders of City and and Swansea and Newport and all the league clubs, really, they say you can come in for a certain price, and the fans get behind that, because the ones that go every week have got to get behind that. They see other people have the incentives, and they're fine with it. So it has sort of like sort of created this I don't know, idea that if you go to watch Merthyr, there will be like a few thousand people there, and they will take a few hundred away. And I think that's a big part of why they've been so successful certainly this last 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's really clever sort of marketing with the tickets to get season ticket holders of the EFL clubs, because, you know, people are in a habit and they go watch football every Saturday. That's part of their routine. And, you know, if they don't want to go away, or, you know, this Saturday, for instance, Sunderland for Cardiff it's a bit of a trek, isn't it? So, you know, you'll have a fair few people who won't fancy that. So, but they still want their football fix, so they can come and watch Merthyr. Funny enough, I know that there's a group of Cardiff City World people going up there to watch Merthyr, because you come up against Stuart Fleetwood and Swindon Submarine on the weekend. Stuart Fleetwood, of course, former Cardiff City forward. That'll be an interesting game at the weekend, Jonny. Will you be there? Are you looking forward to it?
I'm not there this weekend. I do this thing called Day Fever now, this daytime nightclub event, so I have to work with them. But I try to get down when I can, especially in midweek. I try to get along, and I think they'll get a really decent crowd on Saturday. You know, traditionally and historically, Merthyr and Cardiff have very strong links in a football sense. So we do get a lot of City fans that go to games from down the valley. They come up on the train, you know. We get a few Swansea fans and Newport fans there as well. They come up, you know, which is great, you know, and everybody's sort of encouraged to get along and enjoy it. But you know, it is a big thing when City I've got a game or somewhere further away. Merthyr get a bump, especially, like, you know, and I think you know, that's encouraged quite a lot, really. That if you want to get up and enjoy watching Merthyr play, come up on the train, like I say, and have a beer, watch some good football, and then, you know, you have your football fix, as you said, you know. And I think a big turning point. There was a game against a team in the FA Cup about 2 years ago, and there was about 3,000 or 4,000 there, and it was absolutely packed, and the atmosphere was fantastic, you know. And I think that was a big moment, really, when everybody kind of realised, oh, actually, you can get along to Merthyr. And we are getting a lot of kids there. There's a big group of about 300-400 kids between the age of about 15 and 20 that I would probably have said would have gone down to watch City or possibly Swansea, because they can have a bounce on the terrace. They can sing, they can stand by their mate, they can have a chant, they can bang the top of the stand. My missus loves it when they do that. They bang the tin stand, and she's like, oh. So I think if you're 16 or 17, you know, it is an enjoyable day out if you're with your mates to go and watch Merthyr. It is something you go, oh, that was a good crack. You know, I could stand by them, I could have a sing song, and I can watch some football. So, you know, all those things have definitely contributed to sort of like where they are really at the moment.
Yeah, it's almost like the opposite to modern football. I found when I been to a couple of Welsh League games, and just like you say, being able to have a pint and just sort of the feeling and the way you're treated as football fans in the Welsh League, like by the, you know, stewards or the people who work there, is so different to how you get treated in a, you know, in a big stadium, or like you are kind of cattled in. And generally football fans are not the most popular people, are they, with their stewards and police and, you know, people who work in and around these areas. Whereas I found you go to Welsh League football and lower league football, and you're almost embraced. You know, it's such a great, enjoyable day out, and I could see the attraction to it. If people, particularly for fans, maybe you've fallen out of love a little bit with the way football's gone over the recent times, I can understand why people go to, you know, lower league or Welsh League football, because I think there's something there, and it reminds you of when you fell in love with, you know, your Cardiff or your Newport or your Swansea, whoever it was, in terms of the EFL clubs. It's I don't know.
I think you're right. I think a big part of it is, like, when I used to go down to watch City and Merthyr when I was a kid, you know, you'd be with your mates. That's what we used to do. You know, you'd catch a train down and you'd stand with your mates, you have a sing-song, same in Merthyr. And I think, you know, that the fact you can do that again, you know, the train that comes up to Merthyr on match day, my mate was saying, is packed now with kids coming up the valley, you know, to come and watch Merthyr. And the pubs in town, the Iron Dragon and the Growan, where everybody goes, they make you feel welcome. You know, they've got massive, like, photos on the wall of Merthyr teams, and, you know, they thrive off the fact that Merthyr bring so many and so many go to games now. Everybody benefits around the ground. It becomes like it's almost like an economy in itself, really, and it's massive. And it's really important to a town like Merthyr. It's a town which has had tough times economically in the valleys. So having this boon on match day where the pubs are full and people are going out, and as you say, and they're spending money and they go to the game and they're spending money in the ground, it's really, really important to someone like Merthyr, and they've worked hard at sort of making it very accessible and making it sort of like friendly for everybody. And not just on a Saturday. There's games through the week for kids, and there's girls teams, and they're trying to make it a part of the community. It's a place. Merthyr's club is a place where you can have christenings, weddings, birthday parties, things football clubs don't do anymore. You can't do that so much at football clubs. I know there's hospitality suites at football grounds, but I have somewhere in the centre of the community where there's like saying funerals, birthdays, weddings. It's really important, and that becomes sort of the heart of the town, really. And I think that's what Merthyr Football Club is. And I think that's why it's so important that it survived, when it really did hit the buffers about 10 years ago. And Taffswell took them in. I mean, what an amazing thing that was. Taffswell made sure that they survived by providing them with the ground. So, they always try to play them every year as a friendly, as a thank you. So, the fact that the club survived and is now thriving is a lesson to us all, really. But, the board, it was coming back to what I was saying, the board has some really, really good people on there. Mark Evans is the vice chairman, obviously. Everybody knows him from the Welsh Football Association and all the wonderful work he's done with the national team. So people like him, and Carl Harbord and all those boys on the board. I mean, Les Barlow, the chairman, he's an amazing guy. He's been really well known in Merthyr through the Merthyr Leagues through the years, but he's brilliant, really. It's sort of like attracting sponsors. They've got a kid there called Steve Barnes who literally sort of like will nag you to death to sort of keep sponsoring them out. That's what I do. I sponsor the ground, I've sponsored the shirt, and I do it because they say to me, look, you know what? All the money goes back into the club. It's got a massive volunteer culture, so there's nobody earning anything, and everything they earn goes back in to make sure the team survives, the club survives, and therefore the town survives. So everything about it makes you go, oh, do you know what? I want to help these people because everything they're doing is for the community, and you can't get better than that in football, really, can you?
No, absolutely not. It's just like what I said just now. It's everything which I fell in love with football about, the community aspect of it and the togetherness of it, which in many ways has been lost over the years because, your friends grow up and they have kids and get married and you all move to different areas and stuff. So getting to a game together can be difficult. But everything which you just described to me is what I fell in love with football, surrounding that. Cymru Sport, of course, will be there on Saturday covering the Merthyr game versus Swindon Submarine. There'll also be a little group from Cardiff City World, and I think I'm going to go as well. Why not? Get my football fix on Saturday.
It'd be great. It'd be great. Cymru Sport
really
would be great, mate, covering it all and all that. It's been fantastic. I mean, the commentary they had for the goal that Ricardo Rhys scored was brilliant. And that's, the club, and that I've seen that at 40, 50,000 views and things. So it's great that somebody's covering them. So fair play to you.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think the more coverage and the more shows that you can do on lower league football, Welsh league football, and all the Welsh clubs, because one thing I always say, Jonny, is Welsh sport particularly, but I think Welsh people or Welsh entertainment media generally is we don't do a very good job of promoting ourselves and promoting the successes that we have. Maybe I always look at fighters and I look at some of them and I see how successful and talented they are, and it feels like if they were from a different part of the UK, they'd be everywhere, sort of thing. So I always want to promote and shine a bit of a light on Welsh sportsmen, women, individually, collectively, whatever it may be, because I feel like that's something that Wales generally could do better. So celebrate our successes, as it were. But I couldn't let you go, mate, before we got to have a chat about the Welsh national team. What have you made of a certain Mr. Bellamy's first little period in charge of Wales?
I think he's been excellent. It's very difficult to argue against anything he's done, really. I mean, that brilliant sort of showing in the Nations League, which has set us up really well for the World Cup qualifiers, because I know it sounds an odd thing to say, but it's kind of taken the pressure off us a little bit in the fact that we have got that playoff game in the bank that we know we've earned and we can use. So in a funny way, we want to start well, and every game in a World Cup qualifier is super important. But it has taken a little bit of pressure off us in the way that we can say to our players, look, it is not the actual end of the world, so don't freeze. And I think he's done brilliantly. He wants to play football the right way. He wants to play football with possession, and he wants to sort of take teams on and not sit back and and that kind of thing. Which for a small country is a massive decision to make. But fair play to him if he can instill that into the players and sort of play the way he's been playing up till now. Then nobody can have any complaints. I think he's been terrific.
Yeah, he's been a breath of fresh air. Obviously, I was privileged enough to spend a couple of hours with him. Literally, I think 2 weeks after he'd got a Wales job, and I was so impressed by not just his general football knowledge, because he's going to have that, but the attention to detail and the tactical side of it, of course. But it was the way that I came away from speaking, spending the evening with him, and I would have run through a brick wall for him. He had me so excited. We hadn't played a game at that point under him. It was just the way he talked about it, and he didn't, he wanted Wales to go and be ambitious and win football matches. And do you know what I mean? He wasn't like little old Wales, we'll do what we can do. Hopefully we can qualify. It was like, no, let's go and press and play, and let's go win football matches, and let's win the group and qualify. And I was so impressed by it. And in fairness to him, the first thing I said after that, I think it was Turkey, wasn't it? The first game. I did a post-match show, and I said, you've got to give credit to him, because it's easy to say it, but it's harder to then go and do it, particularly in your first game as Wales manager. I think he'd only had 3 or 4 days with the players as well. So to get that sort of level of performance and to do exactly what he said he was going to do, that's very difficult to pull off, I think.
Oh, it is. And the thing is, I know I'm going to state the obvious here, but everybody says it. 2016 changed everything, didn't it, for Wales? It changed the country in a sporting sense. I mean, the malaise and the problems with rugby. People are telling me in higher places the kids are just all playing football now, and that was because of that great team and those world class players we had, like Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey. So we are a team that countries look at now and want to come and want to beat, really. Do you know what I mean? It used to be that we were seen as a kind of an easy 3 points sometimes, I think, but now they can look at us and go, well, we're a big scalp now for a lot of countries. You know what I mean? Even though we're a tiny country population wise, I mean, still smaller than countries like Albania and things like that. People forget, but now people kind of see us as a team that should be qualifying, should be sort of getting into major tournaments, when we didn't for 60 years, almost 60 years, so the expectation has changed as well. That's what Craig's having to deal with now, and Rob had to deal with that. I mean, Rob, for argument's sake, got us to sort of 2 major tournaments, which is no manager's ever done before, and he was under huge pressure at the end. He got laid off because we were expecting to make tournaments and progress. So the whole landscape has changed, really. Not just the way that other teams look at us, but the way we look at ourselves in Wales. People do expect us to go out and win, and at home our record has been fantastic. We're a really, really tough team. I mean, the CCS is a fantastic stadium for international football. Now the atmosphere there is incredible. We're really difficult to play against. We win games, and we have got a crop of really good players that have come through. Really, arguably a crop of players. I know we've lost Gareth Bale, and Aaron is a certain age now, but I know he's injured, but Harry Wilson, Brennan Johnson, Di Brooks, these top players playing in the Premier League, and so we have got the players really that teams like Northern Ireland and Scotland, amongst the home nations, would look on jealously and wish they had, so the expectations changed, the landscape's changed, and I think Craig's been really clever in trying to embrace that and say, okay, I get it. He's not trying to dampen down. He's not trying to go, well, it's tough for us still. We're still a small country, a small pool of players. He's gone, oh, okay, let's take that on. Let's have a crack. Let's be a possession-based team. Let's be really difficult to beat, certainly at home. Let's get points and let's keep qualifying for major tournaments. And you can't fault his attitude with that. I mean, I think that's exactly probably what we need, really. We need to be ambitious and slightly bullish, really, in some ways, because that's what Wales are now as a national football team.
Yeah, it's refreshing, but it's such a change, Jonny, from when we were young. You know, I never expected Wales to ever, I never expected to see us at a major tournament. I'd come to terms with it. And it was just one of those things. I was never going to see Wales at a tournament. And we've seen them, a few now. It's surreal. One thing I do think is kind of interesting with this kind of Bellamy team and the team that Craig is building is, you look back over the years and we've had the Bales, the Ramseys, as you mentioned, but also going back further, your Kevin Ratcliffes, your Ian Rushes, top, world-class players.
Yeah, world-class.
Who were known around the world, but we never quite had the collective to get over the line to qualify. Whereas now, I think we maybe haven't got that one superstar, but what we do have is, like you say, is we have a group which all play Premier League football and all play Championship football. I remember times when, we were selecting players from League One, League Two, with no disrespect to those leagues, but just, as a national team, you want to be selecting from the sort of highest pool possible. So it's a very different era because we haven't got that superstar, I guess. But the collective, like you say, is very good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree. I mean, it's a funny thing, obviously, because I do some media work for Nottingham Forest. I get to see Nico playing pretty regularly this season, and he's been superb. He's been one of the players of the season for Forest, and they're having a great season. And you look at him, and exactly what you said. I think there's a few players like him. You think these are really good footballers, and we've got about 5 or 6 who are all of a real standard. Because if you look at the 2016 team, we're one of our greatest ever teams, really. But, we had a boy up front, Connor, who wasn't getting picked for Reading. It's like there were players that were popping up and you were thinking, how did we do that? How did that happen? But we had those, we had world-class Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey was world-class that tournament. So we had 2 players who were world-class and all those other players fitted around them and knew, their roles. And people like Joe Ledley was fantastic. So many players that we could talk about, Hennessy and goals, who were all brilliant. But now we've got players, that you can rattle off, as we just said, like Nico, Ben Davis, Brennan, Guy Brooks. They're all playing sort of Premier League football regularly, which is the big thing for us. And then we've got top-end Championship players. Do you know what I mean? We've got, the boys at Leeds, for argument's sake. You've got Connor at Burnley. So what we've got is like all players who are top-end Championship players and Premier League players, and that bodes really well for us. I mean, we've seen this year in the Champions League, the English teams, they're storming into it. People like Villa are beating teams easily. Arsenal last night. If you're getting these players playing at this level, because I watch it most weeks now, the Premier League, the standard is so good. It's so good, Simon, that these Welsh boys playing at that level is only going to benefit the Welsh national team. I'm telling you that for a fact. They are playing at the top end of football. And what it means is when they play teams like Macedonia and Kazakhstan, it will be really difficult to play against. But they'll be used to that intensity of having to play at the top level, and so that therefore they've got the best chance of beating those teams. That's the fact for Wales now, and Craig will know that. And Rob, I used to talk to Rob about this quite a lot. And poor Rob Page, who now with a bit of hindsight, we've all said did a great job stepping in for Ryan Giggs, who's done a brilliant job and tried his best with us. He kept saying to me one thing that was super important: I've got to have players playing regular football, and he was right. I got to have players playing regular football. And that's what's happening. We are getting players that are playing regular football for teams, and that's super important.
Yeah, and there's a massive crop of young lads coming through in the 16s, 18s, and 21s. Some real genuine out and out talent. There's a couple of 15-year-olds I know who play for Cardiff who are playing in the under 18s already. So that bodes well for the future because you've got that next crop of young players. And you just to finish off, you mentioned Nico. He's only, I think, 22 or 23. He's got 50 caps. Like he's supremely super. And that's one of the things which Robert Page did so well, and before him as well, of course, is we cap these players young and they've got experience. So they're like early 20s now, but they're all, or they're a good chunk of them have got 50 plus caps. That's vital when you get to those those big playoff games or the tournaments or the tough games. It's having that experience to deal with it.
Absolutely. I mean, and Nico, like I said, it was something that I can talk a bit about because I've been watching him so much. I mean, this season he's really come on. Like I said, he's a lot of people's player, one of the players of the season for a few lads saying he's the player of the season for us. And what Nico's done this season is he's brilliant. It's so difficult to get past. He's such a good defender now. He'll tackle you and he's quick, but he gets forward and he gets assists. He gets goals. So he is becoming that player that, we could end up, fingers crossed, with our world-class player in this batch of players coming through, because he's the right age and he's at the top end of the Premier League and he's doing all the right things. Same with Brennan. Brennan's come back from injury with Spurs. He was having a good season. He was starting to score. I mean, the fans were on his back a bit, but he was starting to score. Those are the kind of players that we need. Di Brooks is having a great season at Bournemouth. Harry Wilson was such a shame him getting injured, because he was having a great season for Fulham. So we've got 4 or 5 players there who are all sort of coming through, like I say, in the right age. And I mean, the City game against Aston Villa in the Cup, which I really enjoyed watching. I mean, the Welsh lads for City there played really well. There was a few times, the commentators are talking about them. So there's a batch of players coming through there. The big thing for me was when City and Swansea were in the Premier League, they had 2 grade 1 or grade A academies, and they did bring through a lot of players. And then, of course, you got Wrexham as well, that area around Wrexham. People forget about that. Like, that's where Hennessy was from, Neil Davis, Harry Wilson. Nico's a Wrexham boy. Prolific area for producing footballers up in North Wales there. So, we've got these sort of little areas that are producing really, really good footballers. And like I was saying, it's to the detriment of rugby at the moment. It's just one of those things, because after 2016, my mate said to me, all the kids want to play football. All the kids don't want to be Gareth Edwards anymore. They want to be Gareth Bale. That's what happened in Wales. And you could see why. They've seen this superstar playing in Real Madrid and performing for Wales magnificently. So there's been a cultural change in Wales as well. And I think the Welsh football team is going to reap the rewards of that.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself, mate. I really believe that as well, and I think it's only going to get stronger. Jonny, thank you so much for joining me, mate. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll catch up soon enough. But take care, my friend.
Cymru Sport.
Thanks, David.
Jump to my jingle there, but this is Cymru Sport. This is the Welsh Football Hour. I'm Si, and we're live on Cardiff City World if you prefer to watch, or Cymru Sport Radio if you'd like to listen. And as always, we've had a selection of guests this evening to talk about a range of subjects. What we like to do on the Welsh Football Hour is, obviously, we talk the national team, we talk the JD Cymru League, we talk the EFL clubs, but we like to talk a bit of grassroots football. So joining me now is a grassroots coach, but also Cardiff City World host. It is Mr. Robert Boyle. How are you, mate? You okay?
Hello, mate. How's it going? You okay?
Yes, very good, mate. Very good. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the trials and tribulations of being a coach at grassroots level, because when the conversation I always have with my son's team, with the boys, because it's myself and 2 other coaches, we sort of do it. And I think they and the parents sometimes think it's literally turn up on Tuesday for training, turn up for Saturday, and that's all you got to do as a coach. You don't have any other sort of commitments, meetings. You don't think about it for the rest of the week. But it's not like that. It's a big commitment all year round, all week round, and it's difficult, isn't it?
It is, mate. I've been doing this coaching malarkey now this is my 5th year. So I started off as a helper, should we say. I got called in the then under 5s coach to ask if I can help out with the team and whatnot. So said no problem at all. And then 5 years later, I'm still here. And it's great. Like, yes, you're absolutely right, mate. It's not just a case of we do a training on a Thursday and the match days on a Sunday. There's a lot more that goes into it. We are self-funded. We have to raise money for our own kits, which we've got some cracking sponsors. Big up DMG, by the way, massive shout out to them. And obviously our other sponsors, but they literally looked after us from the start. But yeah, mate, it's the meetings and things like that. As those of you who know me from Cardiff City World, I can be a little bit outspoken. So the meetings can be a little bit testy at times, but it's a great club, mate. I'm fortunate. I am in a good club with great people higher above me. So, yeah.
What's some of the difficulties which you face as a coach, not just of kids, but like grassroots coaching, generally speaking?
To be honest with you, mate, weather is the biggest difficulty known to mankind. And, I'll give you a prime example now. And this is, by the way, everything I say here is not a poo-poo on my club. They're literally taking it from the powers above. So I think it was towards the start of the season, maybe October time. Shock horror. We had some awful weather, and we were unable to play. I think we were home at the time. So in our local area, the artificial turfs and things like that are hard to come by. So I took upon myself, I booked a place in Ashramynach, which is a local area, say about 5-minute drive from my house, which is central venue for Newport Dragons. So it's a bloody good facility. Anyway, cut a long story short, because they're out in the catchment area, we wasn't allowed by the league to use that facility, the 3G, because it doesn't come under the Isloin League rules. So as a result, I had to cancel that. Luckily, I didn't have to pay a fine because I talked myself out of it, and the kids didn't get any week of football because of that.
I think facilities is massive.
Where's the logic there?
Yeah, it is. It's strange, isn't it? Because rather than allowing you to play that game and the kids play football, most importantly, that pitch might have been just not used for that hour that morning because it was cancelled late or whatever. It is frustrating. I think facilities generally are a massive issue. My big bugbear every year is we all know, we live in Wales. We know that the weather's terrible. We know that we lose the middle of December to the end of January is just literally you never play a game. So start the season a little bit earlier. Do some midweek games at the start of the season instead of the end of the season to get front load the games while the weather's decent. But it seems like there's a real reluctance to change or to think outside the box, and that really frustrates me. And then I watch games get called off every other week because of the weather, and I just think there's so many 3G and 4G facilities around South Wales, but I'm sure it's the same in North Wales and Mid Wales as well, whereby you just think, God, use these facilities and get the games played, get the boys, most importantly, playing football, because that's what it's about, is getting the kids playing football, whether they're 7 or they're 16, is getting them playing football. And I there seems to be a bit of a pushback on out-of-the-box thinking on how to achieve that.
Yeah, you understand, right, mate? It's, it baffles me. I just don't understand. We're in the 10s level. We're not competitive. We still have what's called festival football. So we've moved on from central venues from last season. So it's a case of now. So, for example, if Fleur de Lis were designated as the home team, we'd have maybe 3-4 teams come down to the Trellin, down to Fleur de Lis, and we would have 3 or 4 games against these other clubs, maybe Tredegar or Wattsville or wherever it may be. But it's not competitive. It's, although we, of course, us as coaches and parents alike, and even the players and the boys, they're not silly. They are aware of if they're winning or losing, etc. But the fact of the matter is, unofficially, it's not competitive. So, officially, sorry, I beg your pardon, it's not competitive. So there's just no reason why we couldn't poo-poo using other venues and things like that. And you're absolutely right about, the season starting. I'll give you an example now, mate. We, I think, have played as a club, as an age group, maybe 3-4, give or take, festivals of football this year. Sorry, beg your pardon. The season finishes in 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Season's over in 7 weeks, mate. End of April, we're done. All right, yes, we will arrange friendlies with good friends of ours in Penrhyn, Abercarn, Pengham, wherever it may be. But effectively, the season's done, mate. We could call it quits. And if we didn't join up to tournaments with, like I mentioned in the chat earlier on, Pendarren Park, cracking atmosphere for the kids. Like, I took them, I'm going way off track, so sorry, Si. But I took the kids there a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago. And even at that age, 7-8 years of age, mate, they're walking out in Pendarren Park. And it's a proper football stadium, like, and it's wild. So cracking set, big shout out to them for that. But yeah, effectively, we could be done, mate, in 7 weeks' time. And I could say, we'll see you all in August, September. Also, we won't do that because the parents will slam mine and the coach's head, my rest of my team's coach's heads in, like, for not taking the kids off their hands for an hour on a Thursday. But
it is a strange one, mate, because like we're kind of in this bit of a similar position. Like, if we hadn't had the weather that we've had recently, our season would nearly be played. But our age group in Cardiff, so just our age group is the only age group which hasn't had a cup, which involves like all the different, the A League, the B League, C League, etc. We're the only age group who haven't had that. And I think that's frustrating for the kids, because if it wasn't for the weather recently, our season would probably be finishing about now. And that seems so unfair to the kids, because what it's about is getting kids playing football and especially like the age my boys are at, like, they're 15, 16. If they ain't playing football, they're either in bed, gaming, or just hanging around with their mates.
100%.
So the whole point is to keep them playing, keep them fit, keep them active, keep them out of trouble. And it just feels like sometimes it feels like you're fighting against a bit of a losing battle.
Yeah, you're 100% right, mate. And apologies, I've used this example quite a few times on various Cardiff City World shows and Patreon shows and things like that. But the power that sport, not just necessarily grassroots football, but the power sport does for kids and their health is insane. I did clear this before I was going to bring this up, but Angel's boy Josh, right? He started with my team. Start right at the start of this last season, I think it was. He came along to one of our tournaments down in Austria. He see one of his friends there, and he was watching, etc. Long story short, he wanted to come along to training, etc., which is fab. Now, Josh is quite a shy lad. He has his struggles and things like that, which, a lot of kids do. And, to give you an example, when he first started coming along to training, mate, it was a case of first 10, 15 minutes, me and him would have a kick about, just pass it back and forth. Or he would take shots at me or whatever. Maybe I'd let a couple in because, I'm joking, Josh's class. But, we'd have a little, build up his confidence, etc. And me and him have a little chat about Cardiff, whatever football shirt he was wearing that day. I'd talk about it with him and stuff like that. So we would, we'd do all that. And then he would join in with the rest of the group then, for maybe like the last half hour, 40 minutes and get involved because he'd relax, he chilled and things like that. Mate, Josh now, all right, granted, Angel's proper time little keeper, but Josh is the one of the first ones are training, one of the last ones to leave training. First one's there on a Sunday, last one to leave on a Sunday. And I had the privilege to give Josh and award Josh Player of the Year last season. Angel's got a recording somewhere of me. Where I've done a few speeches and things like that for the club over the years for players. But this one meant a lot. And I'm not just saying it because it's Angel. But he's a lovely kid, Josh, and it's just nuts. And it's just amazing what sport and grassroots football can do for kids, because he's gone from a shy little man who would just have a little kick about with me before training starts to now, he is by far one of, if not the best player at this club at my age level. And it's insane. And it's great. He's a credit to us as coaches, and he's a credit to his family, and he's a credit to himself, mate. It's phenomenal. And you're stopping these kids from playing and developing and improving themselves as people by cutting this season short with cancelling games and whatnot. So that's my long haul point, if you like, But
then, mate, the thing is, right, is I couldn't agree with you more, right? But like say it was a Matthew's kid and it was like someone else's, maybe someone who's not as active as Matthew and goes, he doesn't stand still, does he, for more than like 5 minutes? He's always going somewhere. But my point being is, with Josh or any kid, if they're really shy, if they had not gone to that football, or they had gone and given up after the first one because they didn't have the coaches and the volunteers to help them through those initial sessions and get past the shyness, like that can have a whole life-changing effect on a kid, because if they don't then take part in the team sports or grassroots football, whatever sport it is, and they just sort of stay at home and do their thing, they never get past that shyness. Do you see what I mean? Like, so that can have a whole effect on someone the rest of their life. Like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being shy or anything like that. I just mean that it allows you to, one, deal with it, which is something that we all have to do as you get older into teenage years and adult years. Sometimes you've got to be in uncomfortable situations and you've got to be able to deal with it. So part of growing up as a kid and a teenager and then an adult is navigating those awkward situations. But then also, I think the couple of times I've met Josh, like at football or we're going to stuff, he's, he'll have a chat. Like, whereas the first time I met him, he kind of hid behind Matthew and didn't really want to speak to me. I had to
big unit to hide behind as well, in fairness.
Yeah, well, he's a big boy, isn't he? But like, my point being is that team element and that sporting element is such a big thing. And if you don't get to do it, it can have the opposite effect. And look, I just think, I know that the Welsh FA generally, from the top levels, they're trying to do a lot of things. And I do like, people criticize Noel Mooney and the people who work with him, but I actually think I like the way that he's trying to think outside the box and do things differently to what's been done for the last 20, 30 years. And I think that's important to develop and find new ways, evolving what the ideas are. But I would like to see, not necessarily from him and sort of his team immediately, I'm sure there's people underneath, but I would like to see a change in how grassroots football I can only speak for South Wales, but I would assume it's the same in North and Mid Wales as well. I would like to see a change in how we deal with the weather and fixtures being called off, because I think there's so many different things you can do to get around it, to address it, to work. We know the weather's going to be terrible in the winter. So,
excuse me. Like
I said earlier, you start the season a bit earlier. You do some midweek games at the start of the season instead of just the end of the season. There's so many, you utilize the 3G and the 4G pitches for the younger kids. So one of my sort of pet hates is quite often you see I think it's under sixes, they have a full size pitch on a Saturday morning, say, and they're playing lots of mini games on it. Fine, that's great. But what I say is, or my idea, should I say, is could they use one of the smaller 3G pitches and be split around a little bit so that the older age groups can utilize the full pitch and play their league games, which need to be played, instead of just stacking up postponed games. I think last year, the Cardiff and District League at our age group, I don't think they finished it. I think there was still a couple of games to be played and they just ran out of time because of the weather. I do think that needs to be addressed.
And I think it was the same with our seniors, mate. Fair play. Thirdly, seniors had a cracking season and looked like potentially getting promoted, all being well. But I think it was the same with them last season, mate. It's no flowering up high, my friend, 100%. Yeah, and the thing is, like, not to dwell back too much on that, but there's other kids there who, different upbringings and things like that, and it's just a nice outlet for them. Like, and grassroots football's class, and I've teased the idea of me stepping away for the last couple of years, because there's so many great coaches I've got now. When I first started doing it, like I said, it was just myself as a helper with my brother-in-law, and who's now stepped away from it and gone back to the younger ones. But now, there's a team of like 6 or 7 of us, and it's great. Like it's a great club. It's a great age group, and we're fortunate. We've got great parents. Yes, some are very outspoken, which is fine, but some need to channel their comments in different ways personally. But that's for a different day. But yeah, mate, it's wild. Because you have a hand in your coaching as well, don't you?
Yeah. I've helped in my boys' team. I've been with the boys since under 7s. They're in their last year of junior football this year, so it'll be emotional, mate. At the end, and we're going to take it. We're taking them into youth, I think, as well, and we might even take them into men's after that. But obviously, that will depend on things like work and jobs and universities and because they're at that age that they do their exams now at the end of this season, and then some of them will go to college, some of them will get jobs, and they might not be able to play. But at the moment, we're all lined up for youth football with the same team that we started with. Not exactly the same team, some come and go, but the core is there, and we've been with them since under 7s.
Is there no youth team there at the moment? Then it was a club.
So there is a youth. There is a youth team. I think they struggled a bit this year, but our boys, because so many of them want to go, pretty much the whole team wants to go into youth. We kind of don't really want to. It sounds really bad, like when I say this, but we don't really want to mix with the other team. We want to do our own thing.
Yeah,
but that's because we got the numbers and
you started it, mate. So.
And the thing is, we're quite passionate about it. Like I do it. It's like me and my best mate, basically, and then another guy we've been with us for a few years, and like we want to keep doing it. Like it's our outlet from the week. Like I was saying to him earlier, like I feel like since New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, or say Boxing Day, I feel like I haven't had a day off. Like, I just feel like it's been constant doing stuff because I'm, doing certain things and trying to build certain things. And it's been hectic. And that football on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night at the moment and Saturday mornings, that's like something that we all look forward to, gets us out of the house, not thinking about anything else, just, watching your son play football. And it's massive. Like, it's big for us as well as the kids. And obviously the age they're at, they're very competitive. We're very competitive, but it's competitive's good. And this is another, just sort of to finish off, I guess, one of the things which really frustrated me a few years ago, I think would have been when my oldest, who's now, he's 21 this year, but when he was probably about 8 or 9, they changed it to this non-competitive stuff. And it really frustrated me because, look, I get it. If you're a team and you're like under 7s, under 8s, and you're playing on a full-size pitch and you're getting stuffed 20-0 every week, it's not enjoyable. They're not going to come back. So I think the mini games at younger ages, that's good. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with being competitive. So the example I always use is my son's team, the first time they played league football. So the first year they play on a full pitch, it's very, very difficult because the full-size goals are far too big for them and they get lobbed from 20 yards and it's difficult. My boy is a goalkeeper as well, so it was hard for him. But if they'd had the ability at that age, which they didn't at that time, to look at the league table at Christmas, they'd have been like, I don't know, bottom 3, say. But post-Christmas, they went on this mad winning run, sticking together, battling, and really, really stuck together as a team and became a team. And they would have ended up, 3rd, 4th, maybe in the league. And I think them being able to see that improvement because of the competitive nature is a good thing. So I understand the technical reasons for having the smaller pitches at the smaller age groups, but I think there's an age, probably around under 10s, where introducing a more competitive element to it would be beneficial. Same with the kind of tournaments in the summers. You know, in Wales, they're non-competitive. You go and play in a tournament in England, and they're competitive. They have like a Champions League kind of group stage. Then they have a knockout round, and then they have a final. And there's winners and there's losers. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and sorry, so I know I'm overrunning my time with you, but
no, you're fine, mate. You're fine.
That's what we've done as a club this year. We've made a decision as coaches collectively. So we don't go competitive for 2-3 years off the top of my head, but we've collectively, if I can speak, decided to split our teams. We got 2 teams. So we have our one team, which is, I don't like using the phrase, but more of our development players, if you like. And then we have another team then, which would be a little bit more competitive, you know, against the more superior teams that we come against. And it was difficult, mate, when it first went out. There was obviously some pushback from a few people, which is understandable, you know. But the fact of the matter is, and Ainge brought up a good point not so long ago, that, you know, when you're in school, would you have people who are in set 1 and set 3, for example, in the same class?
No, you don't, because people learn at a different rate, don't they? And they 100%. Develop differently.
100%. And you know, it is tough and it is difficult to have made that call. I've got to be honest. But it was the right decision as a club, as an age group, because now those higher up are doing very, very well. They can out their shell even more so. But then you got the other ones, then the other lads who are kicking on class because they get more time on the ball. They're doing a lot more with the ball when they've got it and things like that. Yes, unfortunately, they are taking some hits with defeats. However, when they're doing well, they're doing very well. And because, you know, they haven't got to rely on lad A, B, and C running the team all the time, if you like, because they're in the same boat, if that makes sense, you know, so they can all help each other at a collective level, and it is working.
But it's also natural, mate, as well, for, you know, the 2 or 3 players who were a bit further along in their development. They're less likely sometimes to pass to some of the boys who struggle. But what happens is if you split them into 2 teams or 2 groups, where the ones who are maybe a bit further along in their development, they can go and play and they can go and work on more technical aspects or tactics or, you know, whatever it may be for that age group.
Yeah.
And then the ones in the other group, they can have that more individual time. Maybe if you've got a few coaches, you can have like one coach going round and working with them one-on-one or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But long term, that's better for the group collectively, but also for the players individually as well. And I think, again, like being competitive and doing it that way I don't think it's a bad thing. And like you made a great point there is, you know, when they're in school and particularly in high school, they're in sets for everything anyway. It's not really any different because all you're trying to do is help those players and those kids learn or develop their football at a rate and in a way that helps them get there the best way for them. And 100%. I think, you know, when we were young, mate, I know I'm a bit older than you, but like when I was a kid, mate, like it was my way or the highway from the teacher, the coach, whoever. You didn't get any individual attention. You didn't get like, you know, or maybe he learns better if I show him this, or he'll learn better if he just does it. There was none of that. It was just like, this is what you got to do it. And I think the world has moved on for the better in that way, that more people are aware of individual needs. You know, there's obviously times where you've got to be more collective or, you know, team orientated. But generally speaking, I think most people are more aware that whether it's in work or it's in sport or it's as kids, people are different and they develop differently. They learn differently, whatever it may be. And I think sport has a massive part to play in that. And ultimately, whether it's Fleur-de-Lis or Lisvane Panthers in Cardiff, or any other grassroots club around South Wales, North Wales, Mid Wales, wherever it may be, they're run by volunteers. So that's what you need, more volunteers to get involved. I know that there's a couple of coaches from our age group from the other team. They're going to go back down and start with another team with under sevens. They haven't even got kids in there. They just they've enjoyed coaching, the coaching experience, and they found it so rewarding that they're just going to start again with kids. And I think, you can't fault that attitude, and you need more volunteers and more people like that. Rob Boyle, Cardiff City World, the Flower Hour, which is on tomorrow evening, I believe.
Yes, sir.
I'm very much looking forward to it. And I appreciate you joining me, mate. Always like talking a bit of grassroots football. This has been the Welsh Football Hour. We have been lucky enough to be joined by Jonny Owen, filmmaker, part owner at Merthyr Town. And in the Cardiff City World Hour, we were joined by former Wales, Everton, and Cardiff City defender Kevin Ratcliffe, who was top quality. I really enjoyed speaking to Kevin. And we also had Tony Rivers for the Fan View. We will be back on Cymru Sport next Wednesday from 7 p.m. with all new guests, all new subjects, and all new debate. And of course, you can check out Cardiff City World, which produces Cardiff City content 7 days a week. It's been a pleasure, as always. Take care, my friends, and I'll see you next week.
Do you love sport? Always have an opinion? Why not share it with our audience? We are always looking for new volunteers to join our team, from commentating or producing to writing or interviewing. There are so many ways that you can get involved. Get access to sports across the country, develop your skills, and be part of the Welsh sporting community. To find out more, visit our website, cymrusport.cymru, and click Get Involved.